What's up, little homies? I'm Bad Horse, and this is Halo Keys to Success. Right now, we're in the middle of our series Making Halo Great Again, and this week we're going to be looking at positive versus negative feedback. Before I start, I really just want to level with you guys. This may be the most important video we do in the series, and I can tell you that last week when I finished the video and looked at where we were headed next, I had a very different idea about where we would go. I wanted to do this topic justice, and I wanted to do this one just perfectly. And I will tell you right now, this is not the video I thought I would be making. My mind was in a completely different place on Monday than it is now. I wanted to come in here and tell everyone to grab their pitchforks and torches and meet me at 343 headquarters. I was ready to come in here and tell everyone to hold 343's pre-order numbers hostage, because all game developers understand is money. I was convinced that community outrage was the only solution. I was going to tell you guys to head out to the forums and Twitter and Reddit and complain about whatever it is that you have a gripe about until 343 buckles under the pressure and gives us what we want. So in order to understand where I was coming from, we have to go back to a video from late last year from another YouTuber, B Dobbins for the win. In this video, titled "If You Pre-Order Halo 5 Guardians, You Hate Halo and Want It to Die," Dobbins uses some very passionate language to rile his audience into a hateful frenzy.
We need to pressure the Microsoft Game Development Department, aka 343, to reassess how a game is made and when it is released. A straight up slap in the face dishonesty when they say they didn't know it was broken before launch, and now they're moving right along with all their Halo 5 marketing and promotional activities as if nothing has happened. If you pre-order Halo 5, it's because you hate Halo and want it to die.
And in the video, he makes some great points and has some great theories to explain 343's behavior. But as I began to gather resources for this video, I began to realize that most of the meat of what was so upsetting about that video was not so much what the facts were, but how he was saying it. In his videos, Dobbins repeats the phrase short-term, profit-driven thinking. So many times, in fact, that I stopped thinking of it as conjecture and started thinking of it as fact.
From the short-sighted, profit-driven decision-making process that is gradually decaying the Halo franchise itself. That short-term, profit-driven philosophy. With short-term, profit-driven thinking. With short-term, profit-driven thinking. And then they can bank on that for short-term profits, but decisions are being made with the goal of turning the highest possible profit in the short term. Halo 4 itself was another short-term thinking, profit-driven decision. Because of Josh Holmes' short-term thinking. It's short-term, profit-driven thinking. This kind of short-term thinking can destroy a franchise. Of the short-term, profit-driven thinking that is destroying Halo.
I came into this week bound and determined to hold 343's feet to the fire and make them answer for their crimes. So I started looking for other sources. After all, it wouldn't be a great video if I only had one source to quote in it. In that case, I might as well just show up and be like, "Hey, what's up, little homies? Here's a link of B Dobbins' video, and I'm taking the week off." So I started searching around. The first YouTuber I found was a guy named Buckeye Breeze. He'd done a speculation video on Halo 5 for the Halo Zone channel that just made me laugh.
I think that they're going to be putting in so many more features than we actually know, and it's just going to end up being the best one yet.
It was so blindly positive that I couldn't take it seriously. It basically boiled down to 343 is going to make a great game and we'll all love it no matter what, and that's it. How could a guy be so optimistic about the state of Halo when the MCC is still horribly broken? When Halo 4 was so widely panned by the community? Wasn't it obvious that 343 just didn't care? How could this guy just not see the short-term, profit-driven thinking that was right in front of us all? So I moved on to find some people who were a little more in touch with reality. That's when I ran into Chris Ray. I watched his video Halo 5, the good, the bad, and the meh. I kept waiting for him to lay into 343 for wrecking Halo. He was obviously annoyed with certain parts of the game, but he never went negative on it. So who was this guy who seemed so reasonable in comparison to the other two? How could these three have such different opinions about what I thought were facts? So I started to dig deeper. And as I did, the video I had intended to make began to fall apart. You see, what I learned was that yes, there are problems with the MCC, and Halo 4 was a bit too much for hardcore Halo fans to swallow. But that is not to say that 343 didn't put in the effort to try to get the MCC back on track. Yes, it wound up taking too much time, but it wasn't because they didn't want to fix Halo. It's just that they couldn't do it in time to save the population. The same went for Halo 4. The forums were ablaze with criticism of armor abilities and weapon balancing, And the truth was, yes, 343 was cocky going into it, and let their pride keep them from running a game beta. So it took a while after the game came out to iron out the kinks. But if you look at Halo 4 now, it really has been refined. I was recording footage for this week's video and thinking, wow, when did they fix that? And there's so much of the stuff that I used to complain about that just isn't here anymore. Then I started to think, maybe this isn't as cut and dry as I thought it was. Maybe it's more complicated than good versus evil. On one hand, I found that calling 343 money-hungry game rapists is neither true nor is it productive. But on the other, I found that blind optimism doesn't provide the necessary direction. Too often, members of our community, the Halo community, end up falling into one of two camps, the fanboys and the ragers. Fanboys just love everything 343 throws at them, the books, the Legos, even the crappy mobile games. And the ragers are kind of like grandparents.
I remember back in the day we used to have to work for our kills, and the maps went up hills both ways.
It's understandable to be passionate about something you love so much when you've spent nearly 1,000 hours on it. But the most effective criticism lies between these two extremes. The fanboys never change anything for the better, and the ragers end up getting tuned out by the developers. As a content producer, I can say if there were a group of viewers on this channel that just ripped everything I said to shreds and told me that I needed to change my format or else they were going to boycott the channel, I'd think, well, there's nothing I can do that will ever make you happy, so go ahead and leave. You see, the real power for change lies in the reasonable debate over issues, and the community coming together to form a consensus. This happens in places all over the internet, so don't think that you just have to go to the forums or you just have to go to Reddit or Twitter. Of course it means that you go there, but the debate is even continuing when you're in chat with your friends on Xbox Live. Just because you're not in a public situation doesn't mean that you're not influencing people's opinions. So I'll encourage you, if you do want change, do go and talk to your friends on Xbox Live. You'd be surprised how much change can actually happen when a lot of people are gathered around a few core issues. And lastly, just be patient. Obviously, we can't all have everything we want immediately, and there are going to be mistakes in the game, and it's going to take time to fix those. That said, 343 has proven that when real constructive criticism is presented to them, they do actually make an effort. After their last two train wrecks, they need to make sure that Halo 5 is the best game that it can be. Their whole brand depends on it, so they are motivated to please. It remains up to us to make the rational demands and make sure that we clearly and constructively articulate our complaints. I just want to thank all the YouTubers who influenced this video. Their links are in the description below, but I'd especially like to thank Chris Ray for bringing some sanity to the conversation. If you guys have a second, please go check out his channel. He really is a pretty amazing guy. If you haven't seen the other videos in this series, you can check them out by clicking the annotations here, and be sure to subscribe so you don't get left out when the next chapter of this conversation goes live. That's about it for me this week, guys. Again, thanks for watching, and peace out, little homies.